Welcome back. Our Media Madness segment tonight. Las Vegas police have once again changed their timeline of the mass shooting. Police now say Stephen Paddock shot a hotel security guard around the time he began firing on the crowd, not 6 minutes earlier. This shift in the timeline comes after the Mandalay Bay security guard mysteriously showed up on the Ellen DeGeneres show, where he detailed his account of the events.
As I was walking down, I heard rapid fire, and at first I took cover. I felt a burning sensation. I went to go lift my pant leg up, and I saw the blood. That's when I called it in on my radio that shots have been fired, and I was gonna say that I was hit, but I got all over my cell phone just to clear that radio traffic for they can coordinate the rest of the call.
So he shot. You didn't even know he shot through this door, right?
Yeah, from behind the door.
So because of this changing timeline, some folks in the media and bloggers are pushing conspiracy theories about the shooting. With me now to set the record straight, forensic criminologist Dr. Ron Martinelli. Thank you so much for being here. So we have to acknowledge the fact that we still have not heard of a motive from authorities. And that's really unsettling for many Americans who just have a hard time understanding how somebody like Stephen Paddock could commit such an act of evil.
Well, Stephanie, first of all, thank you very much for having me back on again. This is just something that the mainstream media and most of Americans just don't follow right. And that is the course of forensic investigations. These are complex, they're difficult investigations. And as I've said in a very lengthy forensic article on my site at drronmartinelli.com that everybody can read, I go through all these conspiracy theories and these so-called controversies. So, first of all, with regards to motive, the truth be told, we may never find the motive for Stephen Paddock's murderous rage. And by the way, our first active shooter in our history was Charles Whitman, who was the Austin, Texas Tower, sniper mass murderer in Texas, 50 years ago. So, we still have to continue digging. It's a puzzle. There's pieces missing in the puzzle. But the media goes way off kilter and tries to make controversies out of things that really aren't controversial. The 6 minute segment that they think is so controversial is not controversial whatsoever. That's just normal when police are trying to forensically establish a timeline, a chronology. And of course, the radio traffic from a security radio is not like the radio traffic that we have in law enforcement, where we have something referred to as a CAD or a computer-aided dispatch, where there's a digital footprint, second by second, we know everything that's happening. And so as the security guard is interviewed and re-interviewed, we're going to see that timeline changes. And people just have to be aware that this timeline can change several times, but it doesn't speak to the motive of the killer. So that's really what we're looking for here. The real story is motive. And by the way, notice who's real quiet here, and that's the girlfriend, Mary Lou Danley of Stephen Paddock. And where has that story gone?
Yeah, I don't like to push conspiracy theories, and this is why I pretty much have been avoiding this report on Las Vegas shooting altogether. I've been reading, I've been following, been reading the blogs, reading all the news articles, trying to make sense of what's going on. And I understand the fact that this is a moving timeline and it is a puzzle. So we have to wait to get all the information before we can jump in and judge. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of people involved in agencies, but some of these things I do look at and they just seem kind of odd to me. And with this changing timeline on the 6 minutes, you have to ask, should the police be coming out and giving these press conferences when all of this information is going to go out, and it's going to make people feel uneasy when the timeline's changing every other day. Just today, this report from Las Vegas, it says this new 6 minute timeline from who we just heard from, Jesus Campos, who was on Ellen DeGeneres, says the new timeline means police no longer think there was a 6 minute gap between the shooting of the guard and the concert crowd. So that for me, I think that is important. I think it really is important to know what that timeline was. We heard from the guard in that video. He said, I called them, but I didn't tell them I was shot. Like, if you were going to radio somebody to let somebody know where you were, wouldn't you include that fact that you were just shot and you're bleeding out of your leg? So I think that's why, again, these conspiracy theories and things start to swirl around, because when you try to connect the dots, they just don't connect, and it is very bizarre.
Well, I've investigated over 300 shootings, and many of them very, very complex. None of this is a big surprise to me. And, you just have to think about human nature and things like hypervigilance or panic, confusion, freezing. You got to think about a security guard that gets shot in the leg by surprise. He's got to crawl, 25 yards down that 50-yard hallway to get to an alcove where he gets some safety. Then he has to compose himself and he has to call it in. I'm not seeing any huge thing that affects the motive, in this case here. There are no two shooters. There's no forensic evidence to any of this. All these conspiracy theories are from, backyard wacko, self-styled criminologists in forensic sciences that have no background applied science whatsoever. And, I'll tell you the truth, and maybe a word out to Sheriff Lombardo: stop giving press conferences, okay? Just give out a daily written briefing with some of the facts that don't compromise the investigation and give that to the press. Because every time someone opens their mouth, the press is going to go crazy with conjecture and speculation, but they can't do that if there is a written report and briefing. And just fill them in as you need to fill them in. You don't need to have a press conference every single day. Just give out what is pertinent to the investigation and leave it alone.
Yeah, but Dr. Martinelli, if there's silence, people are going to assume that they're hiding stuff. So they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. And we could go on for hours. I mean, you wrote a very, very nice, well-written 8-page article on this, kind of debunking some of the conspiracy theories. I have a couple questions I wish I could ask you more about and challenge you on some of them, because, like I said, some of the things that I'm trying to connect the dots to that I haven't gone out and spoken about, just because I think it would be irresponsible to do so. But hopefully we can have you on again soon to talk about it. Thank you.